Video editing in DaVinci Resolve is only going to get more and more involved and better and better. The tools are going to get greater and greater, and there's some jobs you want to do that you're just used to doing all the time in other NLEs which aren't completely obvious inside of DaVinci Resolve. And you might follow one approach which doesn't give you exactly the options you like. So I'm just going to show you very briefly how to create a vignette inside of DaVinci Resolve. I am in Note the Edit page. Now we're going to be working between the edit and the color page. I've got this really nice Artbeats footage with this beautiful slow motion water, and I've got the Artbeats logo. That's my video layer 1 and video layer 2. If I want to see those, I can click this little icon here and have a sort of a bigger look at what's actually involved there. Okay, and I'm going to go back to layers. I haven't got any audio inside of this. So I've got the footage. I might have 25 clips, I might have 100 clips. It doesn't really matter for the approach that we're going to take, but I want to show you one way of doing it which is probably not what you're looking for as a video editor, and then the best way of doing it as a video editor. So the way that some people might approach it, which is only going to give you transparency and not controllability, is you go to the color page, and in the color page I'm just going to rearrange this. I'm going to shut this panel down here, so shut my gallery down and get rid of this timeline area here by clicking this, maximize my space. There we go. So what we might want to do is actually go from the clip mode, this says clip up here, to timeline mode. And when you go into timeline mode, any changes you make are global for the whole timeline. So any change you make here will affect every clip in the timeline. However, watch this, if I go back to the edit page and then come back to the color page, by default it's gone back to clip. So make sure you're on timeline. And then what you need to do is add a node for the whole timeline. So we can go to nodes, add serial node, and let's bring it across so we can see it. Now anything I do in this node is going to affect everything. Now I'm down here in my power windows. Probably come in with your curves, and we go to the power windows and we can create a circular power window. Okay, click the window, and then we can adjust it to fill the whole screen. So we can do this and do this, usual way of doing things. And you can feather it out as you wish, or whatever you want to do. Okay, so we're creating a nice window, and if you can't see your bits here, by the way, you can go down to where it says softness down here, and you can make it softer as you wish by actually using that slider. Now, over here it looks like it's working, but over here it doesn't. And even if we click this, we can see that that's showing us, well, something's happening, but it's not working properly. We're not really seeing the vignette. To make the vignette work, we need to tell DaVinci Resolve to use the alpha channel. Okay, to use the transparency. To actually do that, we do have a transparency output from the node, but we have no alpha output actually in the node editor. So what we need to do is right click and go add alpha output. There's the alpha output, and then when we take the alpha output from this mask that we've created down to the alpha output over here, it's going to use that to create the transparency, and you can invert it if it's giving you the wrong look. Now, in one sense, that looks like a vignette, and if I go over to my edit page, you know, it's kind of vignette looking. Problem is, apart from where we've gone, and notice I've gone back to clip here, I'm going to go back to timeline. Apart from where we've got this soft edge, we've actually got complete and total transparency in these corners, and that's uncontrollable. So if I was to add a node, or even just color correct in this node, I'm just going to add a node in the timeline, and I want to do some color correction. So I wanted to make the whole thing perhaps make the highlights a little bit warmer. Pull those across and make them a little bit more warmer. Actually, I'm not affecting the vignette at all. I'm actually affecting the clip, which is completely, well, which is exactly what I don't want to do. So I'm just going to reset that. So this approach does create something that looks vignette-ish and will affect all your clips in your timeline, but it's uncontrollable, and it's not really the way that you want to work inside of DaVinci Resolve to create your vignette. So I'm actually going to get rid of these. Just going to select them and delete. So we've got rid of that, and I'm going to go back to the edit page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning and select this clip with X, and then I'm going to come down here to a media generator. So if you can't see this, you've got the toolbox and the OpenFX. If you've hidden this, you can actually see you can hide it with this toolbox icon. So make sure you can see it, make sure you're in toolbox, and at the bottom I'm going to choose probably this solid color one here. I'm going to drag it up here, and I'm going to do a place on top edit. And because I'd selected the whole timeline, it's gone on top. Here is a solid colour. However, if I go to my colour tab, I can't see it. So I can't work on it at the moment. What we need to do is make it a compound clip so that we can work on it in our colour page. So I can right click on it, make it a new compound clip, and I'm going to call it Vignette, Vignette. I always have to spell it out or else I get it wrong, and click Create. Then I can go to my Colour tab, and then in my Colour tab is actually selected. Here is the item. I can now create, and zoom in a bit so we can see it better. I'm going to actually create the vignette on there. So again, I'm going to go to my power windows, and I'm going to create my power window, and I can't see my windows, so let's just make sure I can see my power windows. If you can't see them, there's a little drop down here that allows you to see them or hide them. And again, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to take it up, and I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to soften it out a bit, give myself a nice soft look. But I also still need to create the transparency, because at the moment you can see we can't see through it. And again, I've got my alpha output, so what I need to do is right click and create an alpha output, then take the output from the node to the output for the actual node editor, and then it's doing exactly the opposite, so I can actually now use the invert button down here to create my vignette. But the advantage of this is that I'm working on this layer, so I can actually control its color. But I can do more than that. So if I want to control its color, let's say I want to turn that actually some blue, so I can just put it to blue. Okay, we'll just do that for example, so make it blue. Now, the problem is at the moment it appears that I can't control its transparency, but you can if you go back to the edit page. Now, I now have a vignette over the whole length of my timeline. Okay, over this item that we've created. If you select that item and you go to the inspector, which is this icon just here, you actually have the controls you need. For example, we can turn the opacity right up or right down. We can, if we prefer, choose blend mode, so screen would be an obvious one. Maybe multiply would be another one that's often used. And then you can decide how it's going to look just by pulling up and down the actual opacity. So you do have that complete control. More than that, you can actually go in, you can take the razor tool and you can cut bits out. So if I cut a bit out here and a bit out here, right click on that and actually remove it or delete it, you can see that I've now got bits with the vignette, bits without the vignette, and then back on the vignette again. And I now have separate controls. So if I was to, sorry, I'm just going to go back to my edit tool. So if I now go back to this item here, I could, for example, change its settings entirely, and now that's completely different from the first clip. Okay, you can even move them up to different video tracks if you want. So that's how you can create a vignette and actually work with a vignette inside of DaVinci Resolve. And I'm just going to very quickly run through it again. So you create a new generator, in which case I'm going to choose a solid color, which I'm going to edit to a place on top, or if you want to, you can just drag it on top and trim it out the whole length. Then you need to right click on it and make it a new compound clip. And then you can call it Vignette. Then you can go across to the color tab, and then you can add a power window to that, in which case I'm going to add this particular power window at this stage. And this particular power window gives you the option of making something slightly different. So I'm just going to very briefly pull this around and make it different. Okay, that's not particularly good. I'm just going to do it very roughly, but I can then soften that out as much as I like with these different soften options. Notice it's a different one for every side on this particular one. Okay, and then once I've softened that out, I can, remember, right click in the node editor, add alpha output, take the alpha output across, make sure it hits, and then invert it. And then you still have the option to do all the softness changes you want here. And you'll see when you go back to the edit page, there it is. You can select it and open the inspector. If it's shut, it'll look like that, or you can open it. And then you can play with the opacity. You can play with the blend mode. You can go from something like, say, screen or normal. Well, screen will disappear, actually. You want to multiply, whatever you want to do. You can actually play with those over here. And, of course, you can still go back into the color tab and say, do you know what? I really need to have that a little bit more burnt, something along those lines. So you can still play with the color and change it, and you can edit it with the razor blade. You can cut bits out, right click on that and delete that, and then you've still got a solution for whenever the vignette is, which can then be changed independently. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Get you going with vignettes. Vignettes are things we use all the time as video editors. This is how you can do it really quickly inside of DaVinci Resolve. My name's Andrew Davis. Thanks for watching.